Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joined today from the Department of Ag Trade Consumer Protection. Michael is back and he is ready to go. All right, we've seen a lot of great releases from you, but today is great. We're going to be talking about cell phone security and scam prevention. But my first question out of the gate is, when was the telephone patented?
Ooh, I'm going to say 150 years ago.
Today, huh?
Today.
It's right in here. The first telephone was patented 150 years ago. And today is the most used cell phone. Or cell phones are the most used on every day. Not everybody has a cell phone, right? Or do they?
Well, I think most people do have cell phones. Now, most of them, though, will have that in conjunction. No, it's not true. A few people will have that in conjunction with a landline, with that corded landline. But I think a vast majority of the population do have cell phones now, and they're not just for making phone calls. In fact, I would probably say that they serve a larger purpose that doesn't include phone calls anymore.
Cell phones come with a lot of fun things, but there's a lot of things that we do need to keep up on, and cell phone security, it was interesting. The first area that I always think of out of this, and this is going to go way off topic, but I'm going to do it anyways, is when it came to updating devices and stuff. It used to be like, maybe you should wait a little bit for the updates, and now it's like when an update comes out, dang it, you need to get on it because these things are evolving so much. I think it's like one of those big changes that's happened over the years.
It is, and I think that the public perception on what those are has really started to gravitate towards the intended purpose of the security versus an extra emoji or, might change how things are happening. And so, the importance of those, I think, grows and grows the more that we do with our phones. As we mentioned, it's not just about making phone calls. It is about social media. It is about doing our online banking. There are some individuals that run their entire business off of their phone. And so because that is such a critical portion of our lives, you want to make sure that it's secure. Now, those updates, and why they're so important to be timely, is those updates are really patching up and fixing security, not breaches, but potential breaches or potential areas that those bad guys can get at you. And the way that I always equate it to is, imagine you're living in your house and you have the back door locked and you have the windows up, but all of a sudden, suddenly one day you walk in the house and you notice that the window's open. Well, naturally, we want the house to be secure. What are we going to do? We're going to go shut the window. Well, equate that to the security warning coming up and saying a new update's available. That's you looking at the window and be like, nah, I'm good. I'm just going to leave it open. I'm just going to walk back in the other room.
What we're focused on top of making sure that you do some updates to it, is just practicing good digital hygiene. I like this.
Yeah.
So first one is the data on the cell phone. And when we're talking about data, about sharing it, being cautious about that. Again, it's like a computer, right? I mean, it's doing everything. You're doing a lot of business on here. You might not know you're doing some things that are bad.
Correct. But think about also how easy is it to misplace it. I'm sure many of the viewers right now, at some point, it was like, I don't know where my phone is. And it took a minute to find that out. Well, that means you don't know where kind of everything is. So with your ID, your money, all that other stuff. So what we're really talking about here is, and we want to be realistic, because if you're going to log into an app or you're going to banking, you're going to have to enter that information. We understand that. What we want to say is, social security numbers, storing bank accounts in your notes, storing things like that, being cautious of, do you really need to have those critical elements of your identity on your phone? And what's really nice is some operating softwares now will recognize, like that 8-digit or that 9-digit number of saying, hey, this might be a social security number. Are you sure you want to do it? Like, just pause for a second when you get those warnings. Don't be texting those things.
Yeah, you don't really think about all the things you're putting on there, right? Like, you're like, well, this is a convenient factor to have some of these passwords on there, or have some of these things on there. Or you're like, you've signed a document, really quickly, and you don't even think about it twice, and you're like, oh, crap, that's still on there?
Well, yeah, and a good example is, you think about, well, I'm never going to save my social security number. All right, well, maybe you do your taxes on your phone. TurboTax is super easy to do on your phone. Well, okay, well, then you save that document. Well, now it's saved on your phone, and you're moving on to the next thing you're doing. Well, that has all of those infos that we're talking about. So just being cautious of it.
Next one is downloading apps from official trusted sources. Something that kicked off this year that I remember Michelle telling us early on, and you've said it many times too, is find the source. What's the trusted source? Yeah. Not just going on your favorite search engine and picking the first thing and just rocking and rolling with it.
Understanding where you're going to get that app from, but if possible, and I think 90% of the apps that we download are programmed on, but using the App Store for whatever provider you have, or I'm sorry, your software that you're using. So, Apple Play Store, Android, things like that. What we're talking about, because when you do that, those apps, before they're actually offered in the store, have to go through a really strong vetting process. They go through the security protocol testings. They make sure that they have all of those features that give you the confidence that this isn't going to potentially be compromised, versus downloading from a website that app or that another third interface that may not be going through all of those, and therefore makes your information more vulnerable.
Next one is turning off unneeded app permissions. Well, you can do that?
You can. And it's very easy to do, but we often overlook it. So think about when you download a new app, two things that they usually ask you. Would you like push notifications, and can we track where you are? Well, I'm hoping that everyone would say, well, why do you need to know where I am? I'll just pick any app. Now, will it potentially make it a little more convenient? Some of them will, but you also have the opportunity to say, only track my location when I'm using it, or so on. Because if you leave it on, that's just that much more data that particular business or company or whoever it is has about you. And also in those settings, it lets you know how much information you want to share. You can opt out. How are they using their data? Some of it in the terms and conditions, you have to subscribe in order to use it. We understand that. But go into the settings. It's so easy, and turn off all those things that are unnecessary. You don't need every single app to be tracking you.
Next one, and this one's, I have fascinated by this one because I feel like a long time ago it was really a big deal, and it's still a big deal. I'm saying this in the context of connecting to public Wi-Fi or open Wi-Fi networks. I'm always like, how can they offer them and not make them safe? But you can't, doesn't really relate,
Yeah.
And so how do you really feel like you're safe even if you sign into one that's password protected and and everybody has access to the password? Like, is it really ever safe?
So the takeaways here, really, we want to be, think about what you're doing on that public Wi-Fi network, because it may be safe as long as the business or the connection that you have is safe with your data, as long as you trust that they're not going to manipulate it or they're not looking at things that they shouldn't be. But the second is, if there's certain really high risk transactions that you're doing, just wait till you're at home, or just turn your Wi-Fi off. Do that through your actual cell signal, because that's far more secure if you're going to be doing like banking or applying for a mortgage or doing your taxes. Things like that don't necessarily be on Wi-Fi. And then the last one is just be aware that and understand that it's really easy to create a hotspot. So your phone has the capability of creating a Wi-Fi hotspot. At the same time, then you could rename that whatever you want it to be. So it could be City of Fitchburg 1, or the regular one is City of Fitchburg. If I'm coming in and I want to connect, I don't know which one's the real one, so I just hit one that says City of Fitchburg because it looks legit. And next thing you know, I'm connecting to yours, and it's not hard to get software that'll track anybody or who's connected to your network and what they're doing on your network.
Next one and last one that we're going to talk about today is setting up security alert emails. How do you set up a security alert for an email?
So you go into the settings of whatever email browser that you're using, and it'll give you a bunch of options, and it'll say, hey, because you want to throttle, or you're just going to get bombarded with all these alerts. Mm-hmm. But it wants to let you know, and without going into too much of the detail, but they're called SIM swap attacks, and that's where particular the SIM card in your phone gets compromised, and that's the identifier that gives it the trusted access. And if that becomes compromised, then they can send those emails that can do certain things. It's just one added protection that you can use, because a lot of it's done through email. And this, unfortunately, we have to swim through the sea of, what's the junk, what's the scam, what's the spam, and what's legitimate. This is just one more factor that says, hey, if we think there might be an attack here, let you know.
The great information here, Michael. If you want to learn more on just taking the steps to be safe using these devices, the website's a great place to start. And also reporting, too. If you run into some of these issues with the cell phone, it's good to provide this information to you, because in return, you'll probably add it to the tips here that we're talking about and be able to share that, because things do change.
They change all the time. And I mean, each time we talk each month, I think there's something new that we've talked about, that this has evolved, or there's a twist on this, and we want to bring awareness. So it is so important for consumers and viewers to call us and say, hey, I've experienced this scam, or I've saw this, or file a complaint with a particular business, because there may be 50 other people that are experiencing the same thing, but no one's told us. So we don't know to look into that until we hear about it. If you do want to learn more about what we're talking about with these tips, you can visit our website at datcp.wi.gov. That has all the tools and tips that we're talking about, and really great reminders that are simple, easy to do. You don't have to be tech savvy. It's things that we want every consumer to be able to give that added layer of protection for themselves. But if you have questions, you didn't quite understand what we're talking about, you want to learn more, call our hotline, 1-800-422-7128.
And review this with your kiddos too. I mean,
So true.
It's getting into, I'm having this debate with my daughter who's under 10, and I'm like, how? And they're like, well, my friend has a cell phone, my friend has. I'm like, how do you even? How? Why? That's crazy. But you would definitely want to educate too on that front. I think.
I love that, because to me, I've always saw that what we're seeing right now is kind of balancing the landscape, where we understand, they always that. Common preconception, the joke that older adults make, like, well, my kids can zip through and do all this other stuff, I know what they're doing. Sure, they may be more adept at navigating through some of the apps and stuff, but they don't have the awareness of all the risks that are behind it. We do. And so we can kind of balance that out and say, you show me how to navigate, but let me show you how to be secure in doing so.
Well, and doing it together too works really good. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's the one thing that when we sit down and talk, we're like, all right, let me show you what this looks like if you pull this type of stunt, so to speak, or whatever. And even Dad doesn't know everything about that, so we're just going to do this together and, not be surprised in the end. But I think it's that, doing that joint conversation too.
It's so important to do that together, because it also gives the parent exposure to what is really on their child's, and not on that scrutinizing of what are they doing wrong, but more of do they have apps that are attached to the house? I'm like, are they attached to the Ring camera? Are they attached to the Amazon? Are there inlets to the family's phone or family plans? So oftentimes a child's phone isn't just an independent device. It's connected to the family in other ways. And so that gives you a chance to say, how do I shore up some of those protections? Or if they have, maybe a credit card or something attached to them in emergencies, well, that's one more vulnerable point that they may not even be aware of. So just making sure that the whole family stays protected through that one device.